Simplicity is gained. Hello. That's ridiculous. I like this pulpit, and I like all of you. And I like you, Sarah and Jack. You hear these words every Sunday, and this congregation hears these words every Sunday. And they are always all our words for each of us. But today they're in particular for you two, and your ministries, in this place. Come in. Come into this place which we make holy by our presence. Come in with all your vulnerabilities and strengths, fears and anxieties, loves and hopes, for here you need not hide, nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where we can touch and be touched, heal and be healed, forgive and be forgiven. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, the compassionate is expected. Come into this place. Together, we make it a holy place.
Good afternoon. It's a total joy and honor to be part of this magnificent day. Yes, there's Mommy. And I'm Mommy too. And we are so joyful to be part of the ordination and installation of Jack and the installation of Sarah, and we light the chalice in their honor this afternoon.
There is a good spirit afoot this afternoon. And this is an awesome moment. A moment that calls us into a place of awe and wonder. It is a significant moment for the life of this congregation. And I want to say just a few words about the deeper meanings of this time. Friends, in our faith tradition, the power and authority to ordain and install a minister rests in the individual religious community, this body of White Bear. Ordination, and particularly installation, are profoundly relational acts. Jack and Sarah are not assigned to this congregation by a bishop or by some other religious authority. They have chosen you, and you have chosen them. Ordination is the act by which an individual is set apart, is called out in their unique commitment to the vocation of ministry, this holy and terrifying and wondrous calling. Ordination is a moment in which the saints of past and present, alive in this body, bless a new minister into the thing they cannot say no to, the calling to help create beloved community, the calling to invite people across boundaries and borders, the calling to heal, and the calling to love the hell out of this world. By ordaining Jack Gaede to the Unitarian Universalist ministry, you, the members of White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church, are witnessing to all the members and congregations of this association that Jack is worthy of our trust, that his ministry can be welcomed, his faithfulness and integrity assured. In this timeless act, you place upon his shoulders the joy-filled, heartbreaking, heart-mending mantle of ministry. And by installing Jack and Sarah as your ministers today, you enter into a sacred covenant with them. You are freely choosing one another, promising to journey together, to let the fullness and power of this ministry blossom and unfold. You are choosing this ministry not just for today or tomorrow, but for the months and the years to come. In the sacred promises of ordination and installation, you forge another link in the long chain of our living tradition. Let this hour then inspire us and fill us with the spirit of life. Let this hour be a blessing, not only to those assembled, but to everyone who will be touched by this ministry. Amen.
Greetings. I'm Reverend Laura Smitzik, and I am president of the Prairie Star chapter of the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association, also known as the UUMA. What a joy it is to be in the presence of this congregation which lovingly ordained me in 2015. Thank you for continuing to perform one of the most sacred acts in the life of Unitarian Universalist ministry. Sarah and Jack, you're already familiar with the thriving community of Unitarian Universalist ministers in the Twin Cities. Seeing them lined up in that hallway was such a joyful moment. You've been welcomed by your colleagues whose ministries are in congregations and community organizations and who serve as chaplains. My hope is that as the years that pass, you will come to know more of the 109 ministers in the Prairie Star District chapter, which serves Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, the Dakotas, and parts of Missouri and western Wisconsin. I encourage you to look to us for collegial support. As people, we will be there for you as you experience the joys and the sorrows and the questions and the wonder of your call. You can count on us to understand you when the going gets rough and to celebrate with you as your love for the people you serve and your chosen profession grows. And you can look forward to more van rides to the fall UUMA retreat where slightly twisted ministerial humor comes alive. Blessings to you on this historic day in your lives and the life of this congregation. Blessed be.
Our reading this afternoon is Famous by Naomi Shihab Nye. The river is famous to the fish. The loud voice is famous to silence, which knew it would inherit the earth before anybody said so. The cat, sleeping on the fence, is famous to the birds watching him from the birdhouse. The tear is famous, briefly, to the cheek. The idea you carry close to your bosom is famous to your bosom. The boot is famous to the earth, more famous than the dress shoe, which is famous only to floors. The bent photograph is famous to the one who carries it, and not at all famous to the one who is pictured. I want to be famous to shuffling men who smile while crossing streets, sticky children in grocery lines, famous as the one who smiled back. I want to be famous in the way a pulley is famous, or a buttonhole, not because it did anything spectacular, but because it never forgot what it could do.
Our offering today goes to the Living Tradition Fund. This is a program of the Unitarian Universalist Association that is really a gift and a blessing to seminarians, to candidates, to parish ministers, chaplains, community ministers, and retired ministers who at some point might be facing a financial hardship, an emergency, those things of life that shake us and call us forth to say, I need some help. And this is a gift and blessing that says, we are here for you and we will help you. And I know without a doubt that these beautiful colleagues here, at least one of them has needed to have this fund, either in the past or will in the future. These are real people who can really use some help, and it is a gift and a blessing for you to contribute to this fund. I am also of the generation that does not have checkbooks or carry checkbooks with me. So I was very delighted to see that this great congregation has a means for you to text your donation right from your phone. The instructions are in your order of service. We accept text, checks, cash, whatever you like. Thank you for your generosity.
Good job. Some of you know that sometimes when someone asks what kind of church this is, how we got this way, I'll talk about a river. I think about the little stream that runs through here, right outside here, connecting the cottonwood and whitetail and herons of this land to everything that lives and breathes and ever has within the whole Browns Creek watershed, running all the way to the St. Croix and then the Mississippi and on and out down to the Atlantic and all the other water, including the salty waters of our bodies here and everybody. I'll talk about a river and say that our congregation is part of a long river of history. It has its own story dating to 1956, and that small story is carried within the larger, older history of Unitarian Universalism, which flows from two separate streams, each a strong tributary of the river of American Congregationalism, carried across the ocean on the wild waves of the Puritan Church, which flows out of the Protestant Reformation in Europe and England, which branched off from the Roman Catholic Church in the 16th century, which in turn was one stream, but not the only stream, running down the centuries from the waters of the early Christian church in Alexandria, Jerusalem, and Rome, which of course flowed from the mystical headwaters of the ministry of the man Jesus, whose life and spirit flowed directly out of Judaism, but whose later influence was shaped not only by his own origins, which were poor and humble, and not at first famous, but also by later interpreters, some of whom were Jewish, but some of whom were Greek, and there another mighty artery flows in. And Judaism flowed out of the desert, out of the sand, out of nomadic bands of wanderers and worshipers, people who stopped their caravans at night, and they gathered around little fires, casting questions into the embers and up to the stars. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? And by these questions, they were bound to everyone, everywhere, and always, every people on this earth, asking questions around their fires, in their kitchens late at night, their cubicles all day, their cars. That's the river of religious history out of which we come. It is a powerful confluence of insistence on freedom of conscience and commitment to radical love, both high-risk, death-defying orientations of the Spirit. Whenever someone joins here, signs their name into the red leather membership book, it's not as if their story is going to be washed away in the current. Rather, the course of the entire stream, the direction and flow of our congregation and our whole tradition shift just a little bit simply by your coming. You affect now how it's going to go, how we're all going to go, by your willingness to join your story with all these other stories, present, past, becoming. This history is lively, living water, and it is made holy by your presence. And so we say to all who want to come and all who need to come, come in. And so I say to you, Sara, and you, Jack, come in. And this matters in a certain collegial kind of way. It matters that I'm saying to you, this is your congregation. These are your people. You're their ministers. I'm saying that with gladness and with gratitude. I mingle my calling with yours. But what matters more is the people themselves saying it to you, your congregation speaking it to you, which momentarily they're going to do. The river is famous to the fish, says Naomi Shihab Nye, but the fishes, one by one, are not particularly famous to the river, which is huge and mighty and ancient and eternal. We're here, each of us, ministers and members and others, to be part of a story that's larger than our own little stories that matter so much and don't matter and yet do. We're here to fit that all together and be part of something larger than our own selves. And Jack and Sara, whether you or I stay for a few years or a few decades, doesn't matter. The river just flows on and on in spite of us, and that's a good thing. We're not here to be famous. We're not here to be famous. We're here to speak the truth in love. So I'll tell you a story, ancient story. In divinity school, I had a professor of systematic theology, systematic Christian theology, required year-long course. The subject was ponderous and esoteric. We met in a windowless basement classroom in the late afternoon. The lectures were long and mostly uneventful, until one day, all of a sudden, in mid-sentence, our respected and respectful teacher, who was formal in a kind of classic way, who was gray and stooped and chalk dusty, a little like the classroom itself, he just stopped talking. Maybe he noticed our drowsiness. He took off his glasses and he looked down and sat down, and he sighed so heavily. He was a big man, and his silence was large in the room. And he dismissed us. He just said, "You can go home." But we just sat there, wide awake now, and quietly, with quivering emotion, he said, "When you leave this place," meaning the school, "you will have one task and one task only: to preach Christ, Christ crucified and resurrected. This is the only work of the church and its ministers." For the only Unitarian Universalist in the room, this was unfortunate news. Oh, no. I was a dutiful scholar, though, so I scribbled down those words, but of course I failed to see, I couldn't see at all, how such a claim could possibly apply to me, so I filed his words away in this ever-bulging corner of my mind labeled "Stuff Learned in Seminary That Unitarians Don't Really Need to Care About." And that is a rather ignorant and arrogant and unseemly, messy little corner. I know now that those two sentences, which were spoken almost in a whisper and with such intense integrity, were probably the most important and most moving sermon I have ever heard, even though it was delivered in a language that I do not speak and that I barely understand. At some point, years later, thinking on it still, praying on it still, I remembered somebody told me that this teacher had been among the few from that conservative school to travel to Selma, Alabama in 1965, staying several weeks that winter into spring, February through April, through mass meetings and Bloody Sunday and all the way across that bridge. He was white and a Southerner. I remembered also sometime later somebody telling me he'd been a leader in crossing the border between the outrageous wealth and privileged indifference of that university and the impoverished city all around it, standing with the pastors of tiny storefront churches when neighborhoods were razed for urban renewal, standing with the union many times when the college staff went out on strike, food service workers, housekeepers, standing with students and citizens downtown, demanding a fair hearing for Bobby Seale and the Black Panthers in one generation and divestment from South Africa in the next. I also remembered, though I had forgotten, the expansive hospitality that he had shown me and his astounding knowledge, better than mine's ever going to be, of the deep roots of Universalism and Unitarianism. He pointed me to sources I never would have found. He acted as if our theological differences were a welcome circumstance through which both he and I might prosper and grow wise, even though he was already pretty smart. He didn't need me. He acted like a Unitarian Universalist, which obviously he was not. And I was still, and I am still, trying to become. I'm almost sure that I'm not going to say that the work of this congregation is to preach Christ crucified and resurrected. But I have come to believe that our purpose here is to lift up the suffering of humanity and the fragility of earth, the brokenness of the world and the breakability of our hearts, and also at the same time to lift up hope and gratitude, to hold with both hands at all times, a paradox. And I think that's part of what he meant that day about Christ crucified and resurrected, that our job is to engage death and life, poverty and power, human evil and despair and grief, and all the implications of dominance and white supremacy, regardless of the risks. And at the same time, it's our job to engage joy and love and hope, regardless of the evidence. He also meant, I'm pretty sure, things that I cannot fathom, aspects of that central Christian story that are not mine to own, and they never will be. And I don't mean to water down or neutralize the power of that story by translating it into this weak Unitarian speak, but I do believe, a third way between rejecting it outright and adopting it wholesale is to receive it the way you might receive an unexpected guest. Somebody who comes in and brings a glimpse of human experience that you might not otherwise have seen, news you maybe need, who in telling their story in their language, their strange language, blesses your house, opens your eyes, thaws your winter hard heart, a guest who teaches you gently to tear down these walls that divide us. So in remembering this story, I had to go back and check for sure the name of my professor, and part of that is my appalling memory, which you've both experienced now. And the larger part is that he never meant to be famous. He actually was, but he didn't mean to be. He didn't care about that at all. But we were famous to him. Fresh-faced divinity students, bored and righteous, full of unearned confidence and bluster. Terrible. It mattered to him that we be able and ready to discern and put to words not an elevator speech, but a living theology to anchor us and hold us in our dark nights of despair and doubt and self-doubt, which he knew would come. A bright theology, a saving faith that we could carry to the pulpit, to this one, and that bedside, and this classroom, Jack, filled with coming-of-age students, and that gathering of young adults, Sarah, who are trying to hold jobs and dreams and relationships and children in such a harsh economy. A faith you can carry to this committee and that kitchen and that memorial service with all these shattered souls sitting in the room, this room, and carry also into that call to action and the next one and the next, a theology you know by heart. I believe this world is beautiful and that every person is born into it out of mystery with equivalent stature. And we're all born with the same name, every one of us, and that name is Child of God, whatever your translation is. It's a name we can never shake, that can never be taken from us or obliterated or forgotten, despite the names our parents give us or the names we choose as we grow or names bestowed on us, beautiful names like Reverend. We have a given name, despite whatever names, terrible, cruel, deadly labels, statistical categories, demonizing slander, slurs, profiles, whatever names we slap down on each other. I believe the blood in our veins flows like a river, like water, like the rain from which it derives. And we all bear a common name, and it's not fancy or famous, and that name is beloved. That name is worthy, sufficient. And the inward light that burns within each soul is a living ember of divinity, the starlight and the larger love transcending all our understanding. And thus, when millions and millions of beautiful, shining souls are thrown away, or any single one, discarded, disrespected, trampled, scorned, wasted in poverty or prison, then every other spirit is diminished and the sacred fabric frays to unraveling. Our work in the world, therefore, is tikkun olam, the continuous work of repair, stitching, reweaving all these strands. with everybody else. Sara and Jack, I know you just a little now, and I can see you're not likely to talk in the new member classes about resurrection or rivers. You must find your own telling of the story and sing the song of the soul in harmony with these, your people, your congregation, calling out of them their own sacred music. When they rise in a moment to install you, ordain, install, both, that's what they'll be counting on. They believe they've glimpsed a readiness in you, an urgency to speak and hear evolving truth, and I think they're right. The point here, we all know, is not to try to make yourselves famous to them, but to allow them, every single one, to be famous to your heart. This job is going to try to suck the life breath out of you. Am I right? So you need a theology that will guard against that will cast from within you a circle of protection around you, that will help you speak sometimes a no that is as sacred as your yes, because each of you came here with other commitments, prior covenants, binding you to partner, child, family, friends, family of friends, and work you love beyond these walls and air you breathe beyond this house. You need a theology that can hold you safe in that and help you say, I'd love to go to 55,000 more committee meetings this week, but I can't. I won't. It's against my religion. And that will serve the congregation well, and also me, your colleague, and our comrades, Anna, Carol, Amy, Betsy, Baxter, Connie, Nico, John. And this work will ask the very breath of life from you. And you need a theology that will empower you to say, even when you think you can't or shouldn't, yes. And make that yes as strong and loving and sacred as your no. This will serve everybody well. So am I telling you it's ambiguous? Yeah. You need a theology to hold you in ambiguity through all the things which aren't so clear-cut, which is all the things. You're telling us you want a job where from day to day and into the night you think about and pray about and aid and abet others to think and pray about what W.E.B. Du Bois called work and service, rule and reason, women and children, and beauty and death and war. And also fear and hope and history and forgiveness and redemption and the crucifixion of the poor and the resurrection of the spirit, sin and shame and the solace that can heal these things, and polity and politics and power, to hold all of this all the time with all your heart and mind and soul and strength. It is a job radiant with possibility and common as dirt. The boot is famous to the earth, says the poet. More famous than the dress shoe, which is famous only to floors. So today we may be wearing our fancy shoes, but you're telling us you mean to have your boots on most of the time. The irony always in an ordination or an installation, the irony in all thisness here, is that anybody can do the work that we're called to do. Anybody can do it. That's the crux of our polity, the priesthood and the prophethood of everybody. You've been here long enough to see that our people here are called to, and they are doing beautiful work in the world, hard work, much of it harder than work we're ever going to do, raising children, raising hell, holding livelihoods together at jobs they love and jobs they don't particularly love and jobs they can't even get, so they're worried. And all week long, they're out there trying to order daily lives around something larger than themselves. And once a week, they come here to church to remember and remind each other what that large thing is. It is a profound commitment to the motive force of love. It's a brave and humble faith that the broken, messed up world is also beautiful and shining, and every life worth the struggle. It's this rare tradition that we share, this strange experiment that trusts difference to reveal more truth than doctrine. It's conscience. It is God. It is wonder, childlike, wild, wise, from which all religion flows. Your calling is to hold all that, to speak it all out loud, even when your voice is choked with tears or tiredness, even when you think you've got nothing to say. If you listen to your people, you'll find your words. I want to be famous, says the poet, to shuffling men who smile while crossing streets, sticky children in grocery lines, famous as the one who smiled back. I want to be famous in the way a pulley is famous, or a buttonhole, not because it did anything spectacular, but because it never forgot what it could do. Jack and Sara, may you never forget what you're called to do and what you can. Speak the truth in love and bless your people by your presence. For just a moment, breathing in, breathing out, we'll hold silence together. Amen.
Jack, will you come forward, please? I invite the members of White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church to please rise in body for the service. Jack Gaede, recognizing your sense of obligation to serve the cause of liberal religion, and having received the recommendation of the Ministerial Fellowship Committee of the Unitarian Universalist Association, we desire to ordain you to the Unitarian Universalist ministry. We offer you ordination, a privilege bestowed by the nature of our free church. Among us, and wherever you may be called to serve, we would have you speak the truth in freedom and in love. Foster a sense of mystery and wonder, and minister alike to our joys and sorrows. Jack, are you ready to enter this ministry?
I am ready.
We
mindful of its privilege and its responsibilities, I pledge myself to this joyful and fitting work. With reverence, humility, and courage, I take up this ministry to which you ordain me.
With joy and pride, we affirm this ordination. May you carry our blessing with you wherever you go.
please join us in singing hymn number 123 in the great hymnal, Spirit of Life.
go.
Hey, Jack. When we extend the right hand of fellowship, this is more than a perfunctory part of the service that we do simply because we've always done so. This hand represents your colleagues and the staff that you work with, who you will call on a Sunday evening after a long day and a cantankerous conversation outside of the restroom. This hand represents your mentors and your advisors who you can have lunch with after 2 parishioners die in the same week. This hand will represent your seminary friends who are here today, who are just as confused, many of them, as you are about their first year in ministry. This hand also represents those with whom you will confide in, celebrate with, and cry with. Take these hands. Take these hands. They are here for you, Jack. On those days when you have doubt and fear and anxiety, hold these hands and remember their warmth, their tenderness, their camaraderie, and their fellowship. The clasp of these hands affirms a promise that we're making to you, a promise that seals the deal and communicates mutual trust and love. Welcome, Jack, to the Fellowship of Unitarian Universalist Ministers.
We are honored to install 2 ministers here today. I'll invite Sara forward first, and the members of the congregation will speak to her. Then I'll invite Jack to come forward, and the members will speak again. And once they're both installed, I'll invite all of you to read the words printed for all gathered. And at this time, I invite the members of WBUUC to rise in body or spirit. Reverend Sara, will you please join me? We have invited you to live and lead among us, to make our concerns your concerns, and to minister to us alike in our joys and in our sorrows. Mindful of the great traditions of our heritage and this church, we look to you for moral leadership, for religious insight, and for spiritual guidance. Reverend Sara, do you accept the invitation of this church to its ministry?
I do.
We, the members of the Clergy Unitarian Universalist Church, hereby install you as resident minister of our church. For our part, we covenant to journey with you with the cooperation of our hearts and hands and our gladness and goodwill as we take up your ministry among us. We would have you speak freely, act courageously, draw wide the circle of welcome, and live into our shared hope for the world.
With gratitude and humility, I joyfully take up this ministry. I will speak reverently, act compassionately, and lead with integrity. And I covenant to join you as we grow our souls and serve the world.
Reverend Jack, will you please join me?
We have invited you to live and lead among us, to make our concerns your concerns, and to minister to us alike in our joys and in our sorrows. Mindful of the great traditions of our heritage and this church, we look to you for moral leadership, for religious insight, and for spiritual guidance. Reverend Jack, do you accept the invitation of this church to its ministry?
I do.
We, the members of White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church, hereby install you as assistant minister of our church. For our part, we covenant to journey with you and the cooperation of our hearts and hands and our gladness and goodwill as you take up your ministry among us. We would have you speak freely, act courageously, draw a wide circle of welcome, and live into our shared hope for the world.
With gratitude and humility, I joyfully take up this ministry. I will speak reverently, act compassionately, and lead with integrity. And I covenant to join you as we grow our souls and serve the world.
Gathered here today, we recognize and affirm you both as assistant ministers of this congregation. We rejoice with you on this occasion and offer you our continued friendship and support. May your ministry be a blessing to you and to those you serve.
Wow.
I am overwhelmed.
We've done it.
What a gift to be in this shared space, to be in the presence of so much joy, to be held by this moment in this community right now.
Do you feel it? Do you feel the sacred holding all of us and coursing through our veins?
Do you feel the possibility of this moment?
Do you feel how much we are all on the brink of something amazing?
Do you feel the potential of what we are building together through these ministries?
Do you feel your heart pulling you towards something greater than we have ever imagined?
What a joyful moment. What fullness is here right now.
I cannot hold it all inside.
I am so overwhelmed, my body yearns to let it out, to share it.
To celebrate with my body and my voice.
Will you join me in making a joyful noise?
In building one large, full woohoo!
Can you? Ready?
Woohoo!
Thank you.
Thank you for celebrating this moment.
Thank you for bringing your whole self into this space.
And thank you for all that you have done to bring us to this moment.
Thank you for seeing these two beautiful souls, for seeing and honoring the wonder, the possibility, the vulnerability, and the gifts that make them who they are.
And thank you, Reverend Sara and Reverend Jack, for seeing this community, for seeing and honoring the wonder, the potency, the vulnerability, and the gifts that make this congregation so special.
And thank you, great mystery beyond all naming, for all of the ways in which the journeys of these souls has led them to this community, to this moment of joy and gratitude and reverence.
Thank you, divinity within all of us, for opening us up to community, for allowing us to see our interconnection, for helping our hearts speak to one another.
So from this wonder, celebration, joy, gratitude, and deep possibility, let us create a moment of shared blessing.
We invite you to begin with your own two hands. These parts of ourselves that allow us to touch one another, to hold that which is of value, to create beauty and art, to grow and cultivate earth.
Many hands together hold unspeakable potential.
And even if our hands are broken, full of arthritis, or unable to do what we want for whatever reason, they allow us to connect to one another and to the sacred. They allow us to reach out.
We invite you to take these precious hands, your hands such as they are, and begin by building some energy within them. Rubbing them together, perhaps gently at first, maybe building some heat, feeling what you can make with them just by the simple act of putting them together.
And then we invite you to reach out to your sides. Take the beautiful fullness that you have cultivated between your own two hands and build it larger by creating some space of connection between your hands and those beside you.
And then we invite you to reach forward towards Reverend Sara and Reverend Jack. To take all that has been created here by your precious hands and give them to these two sacred beings. These two beings who have chosen to serve, to give them of themselves to you and to the promise of a world where everyone is cherished as a blessing.
We invite you to offer them your blessings so that they may see more clearly, love more deeply, share more openly, and care for themselves more completely.
May you both know how vital your work is. You are healing a broken world. You are offering hope and wholeness to your siblings of creation. You are doing holy work.
May you know deep in your bones that you are blessings. The whole, worthy, beautiful blessings, unique, precious children of the universe, siblings to all of creation.
And may you know that you are never alone, but held in wonder and in love, wrapped up in the fabric that weaves us all together. And only a phone call or a Facebook message away from real, tangible support when you need it.
Let us bless these ministries that we create as we journey together. May it be so.
Blessed be.
Amen.
Amen.
What a gift it is to be here today. And Sarah, what a gift it is to be beginning to get to know you and welcoming you into my heart and into the larger heart of this place. So I have just a couple of things to say to you that I'm hoping you will remember. The first is that I am so glad you are here. We are so glad that you are here. We have been waiting for you. You, your particular self, your particular life, your particular ministry, to join with this particular time and place, colleagues and congregation. We are so glad that you are here. And second, you've heard this, all of you have heard this many times because it's important to say over and over, you are not alone in this ministry, you are not alone in this life, you are not alone in this work and this calling. You have your family and friends. You have all those who have known you before this time, the long line of ministry and Unitarian Universalists that comes before this moment. And you have your colleagues here and this congregation with whom you are building something beautiful. So I want to give you a visual to help you remember that you are not alone. Even though sometimes ministry can feel isolating, like it all lands on your shoulders, it can feel like you're underwater or overwhelmed at different points. But I want you to remember that we are all here. So I want to particularly invite the colleagues, if you're willing, to rise in body or spirit. And Sarah and Jack, I want you to turn and take a look at your colleagues. Now, these are just a few of the colleagues in the Twin Cities. These are just a few of the colleagues who are there for you in any moment. We've got your back. We're waiting for your call because we're waiting for you. And we're glad you're here. You're not in this alone. And you, colleagues, are not in this alone either. We're in this together. May it be so. Amen.
My dear Jack, it is a deeply touching honor to be called upon to remind a newly minted minister of the responsibilities they have undertaken just at the moment when there is no going back. Like everyone here, I rejoice with you and your colleague and with this congregation in this transformative moment when the words we speak to one another create an enduring change in your life. But be not misled. This is only incidentally a celebration. At its ancient heart, this is a moment of sacrificial dedication with only two possible outcomes. Either you carry the burden of these ideals to which you have just committed yourself, this mantle of ministry, faithfully unto death, every day for the rest of your life, no matter what the cost, or you cast it aside in some crisis of dishonor or despair, and by that action add your weight to the tragic cynicism and selfishness of the world. Do I have your attention? I do not mean by this to offer you a counsel of perfection. You will not be your best self at every moment. No one of us is. And part of the grace that you are now committed to offer those who will look to your guidance is that precise awareness that none of us, however blessed, however challenged, can know all things or get it right every time. You are finite. Your attention, energy, and insight are finite. Be at home enough in your own human skin to know the worst about yourself and still model living without debilitating shame. That example will be life-giving and life-saving to many souls poisoned by the toxic insistence of our culture that they never can be adequate. Be honest not only about your fallibility, but also about your power. Be accountable in its use, but use it. Sort it out from unearned privilege. That's important. But be clear that they are two different things. The world is hungry for authentic, uncorrupted leadership. When people grant you power, the way to honor their trust is not to refuse that energy, but to make it productive in the service of their deepest and truest longings. And use it, I implore you, as skillfully as you can. There is a vast difference between authenticity and naivete. Don't blunder around any more than you can help. The intentional, strategic, and responsible use of power is at the heart of both institutional community building and the pursuit of prophetic change in the world. Now, it has been both instructive and endearing to observe the careful determination you have devoted from your earliest days as an adult to acquiring a home for yourself. We see that this matters deeply to you. And I summon you now to bring that same energy into the creation of your ministry. Specifically, I remind you of two essential aspects of home. One, it has walls to keep some things in and other things out. Boundaries are our friends in ministry. Know them, trust them, attend to them. Let them guard you from doing damage. Let them keep you safe and sane. Two, a home has an atmosphere, a vibration, a scent, an energy, a feeling tone that arises from the lives and relationships that are lived there. I urge you to discover what it means to you to live a life of prayer and spiritual practice, and to conduct your journey so that both your home and your ministry exude that atmosphere. Do not, I hasten to add, make either of them sanctimonious. That would not be a good look for you at all. But let them be witnesses to the presence of holy ground, to the sacred possibilities that are always at play around the edges of our connections. If you are confident in your access to the source of goodness and hope, that assurance will pervade your work to heal and bless all those whose lives you touch, whether or not you know about it. My dear student and friend, and now colleague, I charge you to embrace this vocation with gladness, to abide in it with faithfulness, to fulfill its challenges with wisdom and devotion, to receive its fulfillments with candor and gratitude. I summon you to labor with your fellow workers in humble friendship, and together to serve the highest good with steadfast honor, that your ministry among us may be an enduring blessing to you and to all the world.
What an amazing afternoon. I invite you to hold on to this moment, to feel the spirit of life and love present among us, and the power of community flowing through us. Through the acts of ordination and installation, we have affirmed Jack and Sarah's ministry within Unitarian Universalism and with this congregation. In doing so, we also affirm your shared ministry with them. For it takes each and every one of us to live into our highest aspirations for ourselves and for our world. As our ceremony draws to a close, we take this time to lift up your part in the success and strength of this ministry. As your work together unfolds in the years ahead, I charge you, the congregation, to bring your best selves to these 3 tasks. First, I charge you to support the vision of team ministry that you have so boldly and joyfully created today. In over 23 years of ministry, this is the first joint installation I have had the honor to witness. Congratulations. Today represents your commitment to a strong professional ministry that is not based upon the myth of the heroic Lone Ranger minister, but is instead grounded in the power of a team ministry whose gifts will come together to create a whole much greater than the sum of its parts. Empower your team, your magnificent triad. Give them the space they need to figure out how to best work together and to have fun along the way. Trust their collegiality and don't invite triangulation. Remember that what you say to one of your ministers, you say to them all. And recognize that each brings unique gifts to the collective table. Celebrate the fabulous fact that Jack and Sarah and Victoria are not the same or interchangeable. Encourage them to take up the roles among you where they can truly shine. Strong, effective teams do not come into being by accident. They require faith, intention, goodwill, and a larger shared vision to serve. Second, I charge you to let the model of team ministry invite you into a deeper sense of your own calling. You, the members and friends of WBUUC, will be a part of articulating that larger vision of love, justice, and hope that you and your ministers seek to make real every day. Let the vision and ministry you create together bring you into a deeper relationship with your own soul and your own unique calling in the world. With the support of the full congregation, your whole lay and ordained team, take the risk to say yes to a leadership role or volunteer opportunity that asks you to step out of your comfort zone to where you are most needed. Show up to your church with your full self, your hopes and doubts, joys and struggles. Model that our faith journeys embrace our fully imperfect, yet extraordinary humanity. Live your own calling clearly, grow your own soul boldly, so that you might weave your unique thread into the fabric of this community and your strength into its foundation. And last but not least, I charge you to bring the vision and the ethic of shared ministry out beyond these walls into the larger world. It is no secret that we live in troubled, divisive times that threaten the fabric of many of our most cherished institutions and communities. The world, our world, has need of the radical love, the hopeful vision, the spirit of cooperation, growth, and collaboration that you are striving to bring into this world. Take the lessons you learn, the successes you celebrate, the heartbreaks you survive, the joys you discover, and share them freely in your homes, your schools, your workplaces, your neighborhoods. Share them wherever you go. Never forget that your shared ministry is a blessing not only to yourselves, but to all of us and to the many communities beyond us. On behalf of all of us gathered here to celebrate this milestone with you, know that you have our blessing, our gratitude, and our solidarity in the ministry you are creating here. We look forward to supporting you in the journey, to walking with you now and in the days to come. Go team.
Because of those who came before, we are. In spite of their failings, we believe. Because of and in spite of the horizons of their vision, we too dream.
Let us go remembering to praise, to live in the moment, to love mightily,